As you can hear in the background, my house is currently under renovation, and I'm staying well out of the way of the hardworking crew transforming my space. But as any good reenactor will tell you, idle hands are the devil's workshop. So, of course, I've got a project going. Now, this might look like just another dishcloth, but there's a story here that bridges my years as a living history interpreter with some very practical modern solutions. So settle in and let me know what tell you about it. For those who don't know me, I've been a historical reenactor, and I've had the privilege of demonstrating and speaking at some incredible historic sites. Fort Hall in Idaho, Old Fort Niagara in New York, Mansker Station in Tennessee, and Forts Deschartes and Massac in Illinois. Each of these places tells a vital piece of American frontier history, and as interpreters, we brought that history to life for visitors. As a woman reenactor, one of the most important lessons we embodied was that adage I mentioned: idle hands are the devil's workshop. This wasn't just a quaint saying. It was the reality of daily life in the 18th and early 19th centuries. Women's work was constant and visible. When visitors came to the fort or station, they'd find us actively engaged in the endless cycle of domestic work. We'd be hem-stitching dish towels, and yes, that's quite meditative once you get the rhythm down. We'd be knitting dishcloths, stockings, or other necessities. Often, you'd find us repairing garments, because nothing was disposable in that era. Every piece of fabric was precious. We'd be working in the garden, tending the herbs and vegetables that would feed the garrison or settlement. And of course, there was always something stirring over the fire, whether it was soap, dye, stew, or preserves. The goal was to give visitors that genuine taste of living history, to help them understand that life wasn't a series of dramatic battles and treaties. It was this constant hum of productive work that kept communities alive. Now, fast forward to today. I'm sitting here, staying out of my contractor's ways, and I'm still keeping my hands busy. But here's where we turn from historical accuracy to modern practicality. I'm knitting dishcloths, just like I did in my reenacting days. But instead of using the traditional cotton yarn that historical interpreters and modern crafters typically reach for, I'm using something called Scrubby Sparkle yarn. Now you might be wondering, why not just use cotton like everyone else? Well, let me tell you about the cotton dishcloth problem that anyone who's ever made them knows all too well. They can get smelly. There's nothing quite as disappointing as lovingly hand knitting a beautiful dishcloth, using it for a few days, and then discovering it has developed that characteristic sour smell that cotton can get when it stays damp. You know the one I'm talking about. And no amount of historical authenticity makes that smell acceptable in a modern kitchen. Scrubby Sparkle solves multiple problems at once. First, it doesn't hold on to that smell the way cotton does. It rinses clean and dries without developing that musty odor. Second, and this is brilliant, it does double duty. It's soft enough not to scratch your dishes, but it has just enough texture to work as a light scrub pad. Think about it. You're washing dishes, you need to give something a little extra attention, but you don't want to reach for an abrasive sponge that might scratch. This yarn creates the perfect in-between tool. It can really clean and scrub, but it's gentle enough for every day. So here I am, using a skill I honed while interpreting 18th century life, creating something completely practical for my 21st century kitchen, while workmen modernize my home in the background. It's this beautiful intersection of past and present, tradition and innovation. You know, that idle hands philosophy that women lived by in the 1700s and 1800s wasn't just about staying busy for morality's sake. It was about making the most of every moment, about creating useful, necessary items, about being productive, even the in-between times. And honestly, that's still valuable wisdom today. Whether you're a reenactor, a crafter, someone who just likes to keep their hands busy, or someone avoiding renovation chaos like me, There's something satisfying about taking a time-honored skill and adapting it to modern needs. My 18th century sisters would have jumped at a yarn that didn't go smelly and could scrub their pewter plates a little better. So that's my project for today, honoring the past while solving very present problems, one stitch at a time. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to keep knitting while staying well out of the way. Thanks for joining me, and remember, idle hands may be the devil's workshop, but busy hands create something wonderful.